that. We've got the Kings and the rest of the NBA, which is not all good lately. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on that the commissioner cannot be happy with, and I'd like to see the commissioner actually do something. I think the commissioner has turned into a puppet in the NBA, but it is what it is, and we'll talk to Sean Salisbury about that and a lot more coming up in just a moment. And it's always great to talk with Sean Salisbury. Sean, how you doing, buddy?
I'm really well. How are you, Grant?
I'm doing good. All right, your thoughts on the Saints and Derek Carr?
Upgrade for their team. They now have the best quarterback in the NFC South, and all three of the rest three are scrambling to find out who that guy is going to be. Whether it's Kyle Trask to replace Brady, or they're going out and getting somebody else. So the best, it's an upgrade. They got weapons. The question is who they're going to, the Michael Thomas, all the situations they're got to navigate through, including the head coach who was in the offseason under fire about losing his job is coming back, and see if they can get the offense going again. But it's an upgrade. It is. And Grant, of all the people you could have gone and got without having to give up a whole bunch, and remember their first round pick goes to Philly.
That's right.
So they're hosed. I mean, they're the one. So Philly gets that for a team that was in the Super Bowl. It is an upgrade, and I think of all those that are available, and I'm not counting Lamar, Aaron Rodgers, you got the best thrower and a guy who getting paid a lot of money. For that kind of money, they believe in him. I can tell you that. He's put up good numbers. We'll see if he can get him out of January, which has been a problem for the Saints without Drew Brees.
You and I have talked about this before. I am not a fan of Dennis Allen as a head coach. I wasn't a fan of his as a head coach when he was with the Raiders. I thought he was, not very good last year. Of course, I don't know what he had to work with. You had the Alvin Kamara situation hanging over the team's head last year. I thought that was handled about as poorly as you could have, considering that there was video evidence of the assault in Las Vegas the morning of the Super Bowl, which is still ongoing in court. Sean, you got to have some horses, yes, but I look at the Giants last year with Brian Daboll. They still basically had the same talent as the year before, and they were able to turn their team around. I'm just not sold on Dennis Allen. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and maybe the quarterback can overcome that, Grant. I think that for Dennis Allen, you got to stay out of the offense's way. Grant, you know this in his career. When's he been at his best? When he's a clear defensive coordinator, right?
Yep.
And he's been really, really good when he's done that. And so if he can focus on that, because you look at the roster, Grant, they're not depleted of complete talent, right? Think about last year. Had they had a quarterback in that division,
yes, they
would have made the playoffs.
That's right.
They could have won that. They would have made the playoffs. So Carr's an upgrade. And then the Kamara, as you mentioned, Kamara, the Michael Thomas, they've got, some good players. Got to be physical at the point of attack. And they come back, they load up pretty decent defense as well. So if the cupboard's not bare, and this will be Derek Carr's opportunity. He's had some good players. This will be the best defense he's been on in a while, Grant, just personnel-wise, that he's been on. So there's no excuse. They should be the favorite going in, depending on who the quarterback ends up in Tampa as the division favorite. If Dennis Allen gets in the way of that, then, Grant, I can assure you with Mickey Loomis in that group, and you know this, if they're 2-5 to start, there'll be an interim coach in New Orleans, and you and I both know that. So this is not a long leash for Dennis Allen, but with the quarterback situation, he'll have no excuse either. So Carr's got some players. He's got a better defense. That's always been a problem. People say, well, the Raiders' defense. Well, Derek Carr's got an opportunity. Grant, one thing I can tell you for sure, if he plays 17 games, there will be 4,000-plus yards. That's probably 25 to 30 TDs. Can he protect it, and can he win in January? And Dennis Allen hasn't proven he can do that either. So we're going to see if this combination flies.
Sean, excuse me, I'm not impressed with guys that throw for 4,000 yards anymore. I'm really
not
not
anymore. Agreed.
That's right.
That's just been commonplace. You're right.
Sean, I got to tell you, and I think Derek Carr is the consummate professional, the leadership. I mean, there are so many things I really like about the guy. I personally don't think being on the stage in New York would have been a good fit for him, and I'll tell you why, Sean. First quarter of the first game that he plays bad, they would boo him off the field. Okay, and I don't think that type of an environment suits his personality, and so I think this is a better move for him to go into New York.
100%. Grant, some people really, and you know this being from there, and I having played there, been a visiting team there and covered it all these years, that it's not for the faint of heart. And I know Derek Carr's a good player, but we've seen it with pitchers and hitters there in New York. We've seen it with football.
Absolutely.
We've seen it with basketball. This is not new, but it takes a special kind. And I'm talking about the kind that when you're having success to be able to temper that, because you'll be the biggest thing on the planet. And when you're having failure, to be able to switching to Philly real quick, Grant, about this. I watched Bryce, why am I losing my mind? Baseball player.
Bryce Harper. Yeah.
I got him all stuck on Bryce Young with all this stuff. It's Bryce Harper up and down in Philly, right? DC, he had some great MVP years, don't misunderstand me, but he knew going to Philly, as tough-minded as he may be, that you had to, one, don't make excuses, two, be transparent about if you screwed up, just admit it, and three, go be a gamer. And he's been through all three of those. And now you look at in New York, I'm with you. New Orleans is perfect for Carr. He can be down there. It's a good football town, but you're the one game aside from hoops in town. You're kind of tucked away. We love the city. You're not scrutinized ad nauseum like you will be in West Coast or East Coast.
Yeah.
I personally think this is a really good situation for him where he can go let it rip. And you're right. Some guys, it's not a knock, just some guys aren't mentally cut out for it. And I'm not sure, as tough as he's been in his career, that the mental and emotional part, he could have handled 3 losses in a row at quarterback. I'm with you, Grant. As good as he can be in New Orleans, the emotions of that may have gotten him. And I don't think a lot of guys are prepared for tough media towns with those fans are smart and what they expect.
And now we turn all of our attention pretty much to what the Packers are going to do with Aaron Rodgers. It just seems with each passing day, it's more and more likely, based on people that I respect, like the Michael Silvers of the world, that he's not going to be in Green Bay in the fall.
Grant, I would bet now, we would have said 2 years ago, he's going to finish his career in Green Bay. But I listen, we both have an immense amount of respect for the dude and as a great player.
Yep.
But as far as the leadership and the constant toying with the franchise, his game's growing old. I mean, it's great. Not his literal game, but this constant saga is starting to wear me out. And I would imagine, not that he cares about me, but his teammates, the leadership. At some point in time, you just got to say, listen, fellas, when you're in the meeting room, is the headache worth this? The guy's good. We're going to pay him $50 to $55 million. Are we a Super Bowl team? Maybe. Is it time to see if Jordan Love can grasp this team and the teammates better than Aaron can at this point in his career? Because it seems like Aaron, instead of getting more patient as he's gotten older, has gotten less patient, Grant, with teammates, with the whole, you know what I'm saying? I know he's in his zen and all that stuff, but it still doesn't take away the fact that if every now and again you can be that guy and be that great, and your act can still wear thin. We see it coaches when Pat Riley with it's eventually they wear on you. And I think the constant, what's Aaron going to do, as great as he is and as monster talent as he is, I'm not sure the headache's worth it. And I think it's stale both ways. I think they absolutely are going to and have to move on. And he will play well somewhere else, I promise you.
Sean, I'm going to make a prediction, okay? I predict that when he leaves Green Bay, you're going to hear a lot of comments that are unflattering about him coming from that locker room. Right now, everybody's got closed lips and stuff. I bet you're going to hear a lot of things if and when he leaves that organization.
And Grant, you make an awesome point about, because guys rarely say anything when somebody's there, and they may not put their name on it.
That's right.
10 years from now when they're broadcasting, they may, say, listen, but they may not put their name on it now because they just want to step away from that. But there will be, sources close to me, right? You're going to hear that one, right, Grant?
Yep.
You're right. I would imagine there's some guys in that team that are going to say out loud, we needed to make the change. We're excited about, I'm with you. I think there comes, and that's part and parcel to being a star who, has been hard on teammates and the same reason you love him, maybe some of the reasons you want him out. I actually think that the organization is tired of this grind, and I think Aaron's tired of it too, and he wants to go grind somewhere else. I'll be more shocked now if he's there than I will if he isn't.
All right, NBA. I mean, the big story continues to be off the floor right now in John Morant. And listen, I don't have sympathy for John Morant unless you can, give me 100% proof that he's got a medical condition that is causing this behavior. That is the only thing that would make me change my mind right now. Hey, listen, we're talking about a guy that's making a few $100 million, an all-star. He's not a kid anymore, and I don't have compassion for the guy. These are actions that he's done by himself, and again, it's just a mess. It's a mess. And I tell you, the one thing that bothers me are the people that are coming into defense based on his ethnicity. That has nothing to do with this, okay? Sean, you played in professional sports for a long time. You know what it's like when you sign your contract, and everyone's different. We also have talked about this, Sean. Being in a locker room is the best melting pot. I think it's the best education that you can have about how other people live and other people's lifestyles and what they've endured. I don't think you get that in everyday life like you do when you're in a professional locker room. I've seen a lot of things. You've seen a lot of things. But there comes a time when it's called accountability. You got to be accountable. And at least Morant appeared to be accountable with a statement and deleting his social media accounts and et cetera. But at the end of the day, he's not with the Grizzlies right now, and that's going to really hurt the franchise.
Yeah, Grant, that's such a wonderful point by you. I don't know. You mentioned them, and I've said it on here with you before, that the greatest the greatest diversity and inclusion, if you want to know about guys from all walks of life that accept each other, pop on in a professional locker room. And even if basketball is a smaller one because there's not as many players, football, you're talking about 85 dudes on a college team plus walk-ons. And in football, I look around and I think, you know what, those things you want to learn, go there. They'll teach you about diversity and inclusion and how accepted players are. Now, you may not be accepted because you're a bad teammate, but that has nothing to do with the color of your skin, right?
Right.
So this whole thing, and most, it's always the outside stuff. Inside a locker room, I can tell you this, the players, we don't know that we don't care what religion, don't care who you date, don't care what color your skin is. It only exists, it seems, we're outside, right? We're looking around saying, unless there's some crazy occasion. Most of us are like, what are you talking about? We all like each other in here, or at least respect each other. And if we don't like each other, we still understand we got a job to do. But it has nothing to do with religion or color of skin or what your GPA was in high school. Here's the thing with John Morant. This is Grant, there's probably not three more gifted players in this league than him. And you and I both. I'm talking about when you say can do anything, it's him. He's a highlight film every night he shows up.
Big time.
But I feel, and when they talk about his background, I don't know enough about his background. I know this. He seemed to grow up with a great family and went to private school, great neighbor. And I don't know what the hard times are behind the scenes because I'm not there. But the appearance is that he had a pretty good growth. He was raised good and he's got good parents and love in his home and all that. You know how some people are trying to stay out of trouble, Grant? They grew up in Jalen Rose has mentioned, we grew up in some hard. I used to listen to Brian Cox talk about growing up in St. Louis, right? And guys that grew up, and it's like, okay, I don't think that was John Morant, at least from all the reports, right? But you never know what goes on behind the scenes with a family or friends or what have you. But I feel like here's a guy who's got the world by the short hairs. He's so gifted and he's big money, and they're building something special team-wise. And like, dude, this is self-inflicted. You don't need to be brandishing a gun when you're fighting a teenager. You don't need to go to the club at 5 a.m. and do it again, especially after what you're going through. We always talk about know the room, man. What is John Morant not figuring out? Listen, dude, don't toy with this. You don't need to. You're loved. You're a great player. You come from a good background, and at least it appears. And you don't need to turn it's almost like you're trying to do something to prove that you're tough. We know you're tough.
Yep.
You're a great player, but the gun and all that, this is self-inflicted stuff that he can control. And I think that's the most frustrating when guys are trying to stay out of trouble. It's like he's trying to test fate and see if he can get into trouble and I don't know what it is, but it's like, dude, take a step back on these couple games, get your shit right, and get back to doing it because people are counting on you. And you're an example for a lot of players, a lot of young guys, a lot of veterans, a lot of people that love your game. I just don't understand why he's doing stuff that is unnecessary, but I'm not in his private personal life, so I'll leave it at that. It just doesn't look to me like the guy needs to be involved with some of this nonsense that he's created for himself, it appears.
Well, and if he brought the gun onto the team charter, we won't be
Woo!
seeing him for a long time. And
That's
by the way, for
exactly
those
right.
that aren't familiar with team charters and with the NBA, I'll speak for the NBA. There was pre 9/11 and post 9/11, and things changed a lot, even flying privately in this country. The way it works, when the bus pulls up to the airplane, let's say, there is a TSA person with a clipboard with everyone's name on the manifest, and you get off the bus and you hand them your ID, and they randomly will select people for screening. It's already predetermined. They've got the Sharpie with the color on there, and they go, "Oh, you need to come over here." And there's 2 tables in front of the airplane with TSA security, and they will go through your bag and your carry-on, and they will wand you and everything else. Okay, everyone else goes on the plane. So if you have a party of about 50 people, and I'm just giving you roundabout numbers, they will screen 8, 9, 10 people at the most, okay? And everyone else walks onto the airplane. So it is very possible, and again, I'm saying possible, that an individual on a team charter can get onto the plane with a firearm. I'm not saying that happened. I'm just saying if it did, we are looking at a much deeper story than what we have. All right, I want to move on.
And you
All right, go
have
ahead.
to report firearms, Grant.
Oh,
If you are to do it, you have got to, even in a private flight, that
yes,
has
you
to be
do.
reported.
Yes.
And NBA already has a policy: you can't take firearms on your private flight, so it's a double whammy.
Or
if this
into the
happens.
facility, or
That's
into
exactly
that's
right.
right. So it is. So okay. So I talked to 2 umpire friends this week. I'm getting nothing but positive reviews about the way the game is being played, and I asked both of them, have any of the players complained about the new rules? And they said not a peep. He goes, their feeling is that the players really like it. I mean, why the hell would you not like it? If you can be on and off your job, in under 3 hours instead of 4.5 or 5 hours when the Yankees play the Red Sox on
True.
Sunday night, why would you not like it? But again, Sean, I have not watched a spring training game, so I've only read, I've watched some craziness, like the game in the ninth, bases loaded, and they call a pitcher out because he wasn't in the, or excuse me, they call a batter out because he wasn't in the box in 8 seconds. But so far, I'm hearing good things, Sean. What about you?
Yeah, I think the media or fans, probably like a lot of things, we're the ones who don't like it are either old school and just, I don't like having a guy in extra innings on second base, Grant. I think it's
I don't either.
Bush League. There's certain things, but about this,
Yep.
I'm going to adjust to it because, listen, how many times these guys also on a game where they get to stay in town and they'd like to have dinner at 8 o'clock as opposed to, or 9 o'clock as opposed to midnight. All these things that players think about that. While the players like shorter and more efficient, fans want the long. It's like history. We can't mess with old school purist baseball. Well, those days are done. We're done because we got bigger backs. The purist part of it, if you're a purist, you better adjust and adapt or you're screwed. But most of it is you'll hear a player say, well, the clock sped up. I got to get used to it. I don't hear one saying this sucks and we're going to go back to the drawing board. Most of the players that if they have it, apparently whoever's managing them or doing the right thing saying, listen, you're going to have to adjust. Because, Grant, I asked you with your umpire friends if it's letter of the law when the season starts.
Yes, it is.
You said that it is. So they're going to have to adjust, which I think is the right attitude for the players. But the players would love to play a 9-inning game in about 2 hours and 20 minutes if they could and get on their way on a plane flight or get home to see their families. We all would. But the fans – I feel like if you're spending $50 on a ticket, Grant, you almost feel like even though we say we want shorter games, I almost feel like you get cheated if it's a 2 hour and 20-minute game as opposed to 3 hours, which you don't if it's good quality baseball and not hurried and rushed, but urgent. I'm okay with urgent. I'm not okay with hurried where it's sloppy because they got to hurry. Listen, we ask our kids to adjust and adapt in sports situations. It's time for the adults in the room to do the same thing.
I asked about the pitch clock. When does it end? In other words, when is it a violation? He said, listen, as soon as the pitcher begins his windup, that is within the time. So, if it's 1 second, 0, and the pitcher then starts to wind, if he's in his windup, then that's okay. So again,
so the ball does not have to be out of his hand in 20 seconds. There you go.
It's the start of the delivery.
Right.
That's correct.
Okay, perfect.
Absolutely.
And the ball starts when they throw it in and he catches it.
That's correct.
I've seen it with. I was watching the clock, and the second that ball hits that, like if it's a foul ball, they throw it back to him. Catch, hesitate, clock starts. That's how
correct.
it is.
Now, the one thing I did not ask, and I will the next time I speak with either of them, is if the clock is 0, Okay, because again, I asked the umpire, I go, where are you looking at? He goes, well, there's the clock in the, I think he said the right center portion of the field. So the umpire, again, is looking at the clock and looking at the pitcher, and the home plate umpire has got jurisdiction on this. So you made a great point last week. Is it like NFL where you look at the clock at 0, then you look at the ball? So we know that there are many times when the ball is not snapped with 0 on the play clock in the NFL,
and they give
an
that
extra count
clause to get it out.
Right.
So it feels like pitching.
I will ask my friend that.
Would have to do the same thing, Grant, if they're the home plate umpire. Clock, pitcher, clock, pitcher, wind. Okay, we're in it. Let's go. It was 21 seconds, but he started it at 20. He gets that 1 second hesitation. Look up, look down, look up again, and go. And it makes sense. Hell, if you're going to put that on him, aside from calling balls and strikes, you got to allow him to hesitate to look and look down and look back up for sure.
They were telling me, both these guys, they were like, man, he goes, our job just got a hell of a lot more difficult. I mean, they said they got a lot of shit they got to watch now. They really do.
In truth, Grant, what's going to be harder to do?
Yeah.
If you're, like Luis Garcia went in there and adjusted that, he had that double wind up, and first time out, he threw himself he struck out 4 in a couple innings and pitched well and adjusted to it. It's fine. I wonder if umpires are going to have a harder time because you're thinking you got to hold one pitch, the balls and strikes and one memorize. I mean, this is the time when you say, man, they got a lot on their plate and they just got added to it instead of taken away from. We're always trying to take away the pressure or put them in a position to be successful. They had to ramp their game up a little bit more now to be able to pay attention and enforce it properly, which is going to be the toughest part for them to do and have to do it. So, there's going to be somebody thrown out of these games because they're going to argue with it somewhere in the first month of the season when it happens in the regular season at some point.
All right, final thing. I can't confirm this, but I do know the individual that sent me this, and he's pretty legit. I'm happy for Geno Smith that that's true. I mean, what a year he had. So I'm happy for the guy. I thought he had a hell of a year, and if he got his 3-year extension, good for him.
Sometimes you play your best football after you get comfortable and situated, and here's a guy who'd been a journeyman, and now he's feels settled in. I'm happy for him. Listen, he's going to make more money with this contract than he ever thought he'd even make if he was going to be a first-round pick, which he wasn't, coming out of college at West Virginia. Yep. This is a phenomenal story.
Great
Grant,
story.
I still don't, and I'm proud of him and couldn't be happier for a guy that got his chance and seized the moment and the entire opportunity. I'm still not out of the woods on the fact that in the next year or two, they're going to draft a quarterback.
Yes, they are.
Point
yes,
because
they are.
In 3 years, even if Geno plays like a Pro Bowler for 3 years, if it's not this year, you're going to get into the mode where you're going to start to train a guy to be ready to go in the next 3 years. It's a great luxury for the Seahawks. One, they did not think they were going to have, Grant, heading into this. It was a no-brainer. They would have been taking a quarterback this year. Geno wins the job. The rest is history. Goes to Pro Bowl. $110 million richer if that's the case. Good for him.
Sean, have a great week, buddy. Appreciate you.
You too, bud. Always great to talk to you. Thanks for having me.
Yep, that's Sean Salisbury. Good stuff right there. In a moment, we'll talk about the Kings with Ryan in Sacktown. I want to tell you about New Works Plumbing of Sacramento, locally owned for over 20 years. New Works has a fix for you for your plumbing needs and repairs. Go to sackserviceplumbing.com or call the number on your screen. New Works Plumbing, they've got a fix for you. Ryan, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
The Mr. Worker pregame, halftime, postgame. Yeah, I'm gonna introduce you now as my veteran sportscaster buddy, Ryan in Sacktown.
I like it. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you to everybody that's tuned in. It's been awesome.
Got the Kings right back on the horse after that wild Timberwolves game. Aren't these games that the Kings been playing unbelievable? They seemingly are going down right to the final possession.
Yeah, they are, and it's good experience heading into the playoffs, Grant.
Yep.
I mean, I'd rather see that than every night. I mean, you want them to win, but I'd rather see them play in situational basketball. So very good for them.
The last time the Kings played the Pelicans, they got embarrassed, and that was still without De'Aaron Fox. I mean, but New Orleans had nobody in that game. I mean, nobody was playing, and the Kings got their nose rubbed into it in New Orleans. That's got to still be fresh in their mind, I would think.
I would sure hope so. I mean, this game should be circled on the schedule. A 32-point loss in New Orleans, like you said, with nobody playing. But they may be without Fox tonight.
Yes,
he's questionable with a hamstring or sore left hamstring. So We'll see what happens with him, but I expect the Kings, or I would expect them to come out and take this one really serious tonight.
Yeah, YouTube right here with Ryan pre-halftime and post-game show, and then I'll be back with Ryan for the next game as the Kings continue their march towards the postseason. You know, we keep on talking about the standings. The Clippers, they're not going to catch the Kings. Dallas with another loss. The Suns, though, they are charging. You know, the Phoenix Suns, to me, will catch and pass the Kings, but that's okay. You know, I think if the Kings finish fourth, I mean, who the hell wouldn't sign up for that? And I'm not ruling out the Kings finishing second in the West and catching Memphis, or staying third with Phoenix vaulting all the way to 2. I'm not saying that won't happen. Here's the reality. The Memphis Grizzlies are going to fall without Morant. Okay, that's just the way it is. And I don't care about the record they had last year, which was very good without Morant. But this is a different situation.
It entirely is, Grant. And in terms of Phoenix, they're going to make their run. They easily will pass the Kings, in my opinion. But the situation around Memphis right now, I mean, you take Morant out of the situation, but think about that locker room right now. How are they going to handle this? Do you stick up for your player? I mean, they're going to be under the spotlight on top of trying to maintain that second seed. So we'll see what happens. So the Kings could very well pass them.
You know, the Kings, though, are at least in a good position right now where they can be cautious with De'Aaron Fox, because the Kings know what you and I know. Their season's going to tumble quickly if Fox is hurt. So I think they're going to err on the side of caution. I'm not saying he's playing or not playing tonight. That's not what I'm saying. I just believe they will err on the side of caution because of what he means to this team.
Well, I think we saw that in the second game in Oklahoma City, right? And the Kings have earned that right at this point. I mean, it's not load management. He definitely has some type of issue going on, but they put the padding in the schedule in the win column that they have that liberty to maybe take him out for the night if he is dealing with an injury.
All right, so your thoughts. We circled certain games that we felt had to be wins. Now, we couldn't predict when you and I did your podcast about the players that were going to be out of the lineup, such as Lillard, Grant, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. We got another team that's coming in not fully manned. But I with or without Fox, at home, you got to win this game. That's the way I'm looking at it from Sacramento's perspective.
Yeah, you do. I worry a little bit about the length of New Orleans with Ingram, Jackson Hayes. You know, those kind of guys can give the Kings trouble. Valanciunas is questionable as well. But, yeah, they've got to win this game, Grant. It's a get-right game. And when I say get right, that was the worst loss of the season in New Orleans. Easily.
It was, no question.
You know, I think that this is one you have to have.
You know, one thing we do know, we won't see any defense in the game, so it's just going to be a matter of Sacramento can outscore New Orleans, and if Fox does not play, then that's going to be a more of a burden. That is for sure. So roll the ball out and see what's happening. But how awesome is it that these games really have playoff magnitudes attached to them? I mean, this is fun to watch where every game means so much.
Oh, it's so much fun, and we've waited so long for this. So it's exciting, and it's fun to watch knowing this team will be in the playoffs likely. So, and it's good for the Kings being young, getting that experience, and, roll the ball out. You can't do worse than you did if you're Keegan Murray the other night. So I expect them to all come out and play well tonight.
Yeah, this was a bad loss for New Orleans, too, that's nobody talking about because of the Morant news, but losing Brandon Clark. Memphis is going to fall. I just don't think there's any way that they're not. I mean, you just got to – they're not going to be the same team without Morant and Clark. So, you know, they blew a big lead last night. They had a big lead, and the Clippers came back, and the Clippers finally won a game with Westbrook. But I could see Sacramento still staying third, but I could see Phoenix jumping up ahead of them to 2. I could definitely see that scenario.
Yeah, the way Phoenix is playing, I mean, Durant has meshed very well with their core thus far, which was to be expected because he's kind of
they play the Kings twice. They still have 2 games left with the Kings.
They do. One in Phoenix, one in Sacramento. So, they could easily pass. But you know what? That's fine if they pass. The Kings are still locked in, solid home court advantage for the first round. So we'll go from there.
All right, buddy. You have a fabulous show with the pregame, halftime, and postgame, and let's hope for better results than what you said against Minnesota. I mean, that was a hell of a game against the Timberwolves. I mean, again, there was no defense played. Both teams were hitting all cylinders, and the Timberwolves shot a very high percentage all game, and their shots weren't being contested, and it's the same old story, and the Kings know that. I mean, if you talk to the players, they know it. Mike Brown knows it. And, 60 games in, you're not going to just all of a sudden change your identity. We talk about this all the time, Ryan. The Kings are an offensive team, and that's the only way they're going to win games. They're not going to win games any other way than being that team that scores more points than you because offensively they can't be stopped. And on nights when their defense is really bad and they go through a 5 to 7 minute stretch where they're not making shots, the Kings are going to lose games.
Exactly, Grant. It's exactly right. And those stretches cannot start at the beginning of the game.
Oh, boy.
That's the problem. And that's kind of, you remember the first game in Minnesota this year, D'Angelo Russell starts off just incredibly hot, just raining down threes, and the rest of the team follows. And that's kind of what happened in Sacramento the other night. So the Kings have to at least come out and match the energy of the opponent in that first quarter. Always, always, always.
All right, last question. You, a Seahawks fan, your thoughts on the Geno Smith news?
You know what? I kind of cringed at first because that's the first thought that goes through your mind with Geno, right? But he's really brought it back. He got comfortable in Seattle. I like that it's a 3-year deal. He's earned this deal, and it doesn't lock Seattle in for 6-7 years. And good for him. Good for him. And what other quarterback are they going to get outside of the draft this year? So I think it was a good move.
All right, buddy. Have some good shows today. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Naps.
All right, good stuff with Ryan in Sacktown. And again, he'll be on pre, half, and post game. I have got a show that is coming up on Listen App. And then I'm going to continue my journey because I'm kind of in a makeshift area right now. So it's all good. And you're all good. We appreciate your support right here. And thank you so much for joining us on If You Don't Like That. Please subscribe if you have not done so. Give us a thumbs up. Hit that like button. We'd really appreciate it. Talk to you later. Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of your Monday.